Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All the delegations of INTED2020. Buenos tardes. So my name is Ahmad Putra Muslamat. I'm a PhD student of University Putra Malaysia, and I'm also working as an IT officer at Sultan Idris Education University in Malaysia. So I've already involved in a number of MOOC projects, okay, at my university. So this is my part of my PhD research, which is particularly to develop a MOOC content quality assessment tool, or MOCQAT, and on how we implement this and measure its acceptability in a case study environment. Okay. So this is the content of the slides. Okay, before we go any further, okay, let's discuss about the issues which happen in MOOC nowadays. Okay, so introduced in 2006. So actually, MOOC have already 14 years in providing a platform for the people and society, okay, to access the content material or course material from any institution and university around the world. So, we cannot deny that MOOC is still a popular platform. Okay, from the Google Trends, okay, it shows that the popularity of MOOC from 2013 to 2020, okay, nowadays is not really much differ. So the peak of MOOC is on 2013, but until now, is still a popular trend. But despite huge participation and acceptance around the globe, MOOCs also face a number of criticism. And we have three main criticism here, which is the first one is pertaining on content weaknesses. The second one is a lack of standard or policy which derive from us to deliver MOOC itself. And the third one is poor interaction, okay, between the lecturer and student, and also between peers and so on. So all of these issues for sure will affect the motivation of learners itself. Okay, so they will become demotivated, and they also can contribute the low completion rate, like mentioned by Dr. Prescott and so on. And subsequently, it can decrease the reputation of the course and the institution itself. So this is the latest figure by some of the paper like from Regression Test in 2017, which indicates that the completion rate of MOOC is still low, okay, compared to the education standard, which is just merely 10 to 30%. Okay, despite a contradiction among experts, whether the completion rates really reflect the quality of MOOC itself, but the acceptance level or the completion rate, okay, is stagnant, okay, in the last 8 years. So there must be wrong things there, okay. Also, because we are now discussing about the MOOC content weaknesses, so from my study on the number of literatures, most of the developers or content providers have lack of knowledge of what is the quality factor to develop MOOC content. So they always produce what we call weak MOOC content, which contribute by a number of factors like unstructured, lack of standard, poor design, low on usability, and also ignore the diversity of the participants. Okay. Basically, there are number of research before which want to cater the quality of MOOC, but none of it focus on the quality of content itself. In fact, many of the researchers before have neglected the perspective of content provider themselves. Okay, they only measure or evaluate the quality from the perspective of end user. Okay, as a result, they only cater for the external qualities, okay, like speed, availability, readability, and so on, which is from the perspective of end user. But they neglect or less emphasize on the internal qualities like the code effectiveness, maintainability, portability, and so on. Because I'm studying in the discipline of software engineering, to develop a quality software model, there must be a combination between the external and internal qualities, such as implemented by a number of big models, such as ISO IEC 9126 for software development. Okay, so by combining the external and internal qualities, I've proposed, okay, this also part of my PhD project, a web content quality model for Mooc, okay, which is can be divided into 4 phases, which is plan, develop, check, and live. This is derived from the Deming's PDCA model, and then under it we have 9 categories. Okay, it's like a 9 dimension of quality, like conceptual, massiveness, openness, and so on. And under it is 52 quality factors, okay, which I got from the process of content analysis and validated by a number of experts and the content provider themselves. Okay, so this is a combination of external and internal qualities. Okay, but basically this message or this paper, the question is how we measure the acceptability of the end user themselves. So that's why I come up with this research, okay, which is to develop a Mooc content quality assessment tool, or MOCQAT, and also evaluate its acceptability by using technology acceptance test. So we have 3 steps here, which we need to develop a MOCQAT first, and then we need to implement it in a case study, and we apply the technology acceptance test. Okay, so this is the process of development of MOCQAT. Basically, we use a prototyping model. After some initial requirement and preliminary design, we go into a loop of prototyping, which is construction and evaluation from the expert. And in this case, I use wireframe and coded prototyping. Wireframe is like mockup. Okay, we develop a mockup first, and then it will be evaluated by the expert. And then for the coded prototyping, it's like we develop the actual application or tool. So this, so here we use PHP code igniter because it applies the concept or the discipline of model view controller for rapid development. Okay. So this is a design of the tool. I cannot open the tool here because it being saved in the local host there at my university. But this is the kind of tool which I already developed. Okay. So after that, after the development, we implement the tools in a case study. Okay, because we have time and location restriction, I implement the tool to the 42 users at a public higher learning institution in Malaysia, which niche in education. Okay, niche in education. So they will use the tool. Okay, so they will rate their satisfaction into of the Mooc quality in 2 courses. Okay, so and after that, after they use the tool, there will be a technology acceptance test. So how technology acceptance test works? It derives from the technology acceptance model, or called TAM right now. Okay, so technology acceptance model normally used to evaluate the acceptance of the user to the newly developed application or system. So that's why we use the technology acceptance model. So there we have 4 components, basic components. They must sometimes they are more than that, but this is the basic component, which is perceived usefulness, okay, perceived ease of use, and then it relates to the attitudes of the user towards using, and then the intention to use, how they intend to use the application or the system. Okay, in order to run the technology acceptance test, it will be analyzed 2 things. First is the data fitness. Okay, why we need to measure the data fitness? Because before we can accept the number or the figure, we need to make sure that the data is productive to measure. Okay, and after that, we will measure the probability of acceptance, which is important in this research. And most of the analysis done by Rush model. Okay, so why we use Rush model? Because Rush model can convert the evaluation of the categorical data, like the questionnaire and so on, from ordinal to interval. So it's like a yardstick or ruler. So like we use a ruler to measure a height. So that's why we use Rush model. So how the Rush model done that? By the trade-off between the respondent ability, how they're able to answer the question, versus the item difficulties. Okay, so this is the result. Okay, so in order to fitness, okay, there are a lot of numbers here, but just some of it are really important, such as the number of percent reliability, which is 0.95, indicates internal consistency of the respondent. Okay, and then the number of high percent separation implies that instrument is able to distinguish the level of respondent and also the mean square, z-standard and so on. And this all, I use the application named WinStat, okay, which we can run the Rush model on the categorical data. Okay, and if you go further into detail, we also can see some of the data may behave erratically, okay, because of in-feed or out-feed error there. So we can detect for any deviation of the data itself. And there is the item logic. Okay, so I've mentioned that Rush model will turn the categorical data into interval measures. So they turn it into the measurement called item logic. Okay? So it's easy for us to decide which of the item is really acceptable and in the highest place and which is less acceptable. Okay, so this is the result of the probability of acceptance test on this MOCQAT tool. So as you can see on this case study, generally most of the users accept all the elements of the technology acceptance test. Okay, so the number of probability is between 98% to 100%. So generally they accept the tools. And then we also run the regression test. Okay, regression test, we want to check the correlation or the relationship between the variable like perceived usefulness to attitude and so on. So from here we can see that from H3, hypothesis 3, the perceived usefulness really affect the attitudes you're using for the respondent to use the tool. Okay, because you can see the beta value there is the highest, okay, which is 0.91. Okay, so this is the summary of regression result. I turn it into the figure of technology acceptance model. Okay, so we can see the relationship, okay, between all the item in the technology acceptance model. Okay, so as a discussion, we know that generally users react positively with MOCQAT by the number or by the probability of, by the high probability of acceptance for each and every item, and users' acceptability on perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness is the highest. Okay, so it implies that most of the users really think that the tool is easy to use, okay, is beneficial to them, and then perceived usefulness are the strongest predictor of attitudes towards using this tool. So each and every user think that this kind of tool is really useful for them to evaluate the quality of MOOC content. So that's why they use the tool. And users also agree that the content providers should participate in the MOOC content assessment. This is being evidenced by the item intention to use number 2. Okay. So as a conclusion, the 2O application model used to facilitate the implementation of model. Okay. So that's why the 2 is the representation of the model which being developed before. And the main function of MOCQAT is to measure the quality score of MOOC content. This is what we developed here in this research. And the technology acceptance was conducted to evaluate the user's level of acceptability in this research. And the study also explored the impact of perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, attitudes to using, and intention to use the system, which is all the item or component of the technology acceptance test, on the content providers, instructor, or learners. Okay, so that's all. Thank you.